Our speakers this morning will go in this order: Tessie, David, Vince, then myself. Tessie?
Good morning. I'm not wearing my name tag just in case ICE is listening. The theme for our summer series has been amplifying the voices of justice in your community. What is your call to action? To personalize that call, today's topic is how some of us answer that challenge. Some of you know that I'm involved with a number of organizations that center individuals who are often ignored or silenced and who need advocates to speak for them. It's hard for me to choose just one to talk about because my involvement depends on the focus of each organization's target population and their struggles, and because there are currently too many battles of justice that need to be won. I've shared with you the roads I've traveled as an immigrant, political refugee, and an adoptee of a country that has historically welcomed, quote, the huddled masses yearning to be free, end quote. My family and I yearn to be free from an autocratic dictatorship, and our nation said, come on in. These days, I wake up feeling I'm back in Cuba, under the weight of tyranny. In my childhood home, my brother and I were admonished by a very stern grandmother when either he or I complained about something. She would immediately remind us that the right to complain was earned only after we had worked to find a solution and fix whatever we were complaining about. And here I am, moaning about the constant violation of our Constitution, the lack of respect for natural and civil rights, the cruelty exercised by some against the least among us, and a blind eye to the need for compassion and just treatment of those needing such. Indeed, we are living through trying times when we see food assistance being denied to the hungry, lack of shelter for the homeless, safety in our streets, neighborhoods, and cities being denied to some people, civil and equal rights being violated, and due process being ignored, the sick and the injured having little or no access to affordable health care, and the constant maligning of those in need of refuge. I believe that if we are to have the right to complain, then we must commit to seeking solutions to the injustices we see all around us, beginning with demanding that our government acknowledge the dignity of every person and treat them justly, fairly, and equitably. We can be part of the solution, maybe making just one phone call, or sending just one text, going to just one protest, contributing just $1, writing just one letter to the editor, just knocking on one door. In the least, show up to vote. I believe we are our brothers and sisters' keepers. I believe, as did my grandmother, that we earn the right to complain only when we have chosen to become part of the solution. When we stand up and speak loudly for those who can't or are afraid to do so. When we pick up the banner of justice and show up to do the work. I still hear my grandmother's voice challenging me to engage in making the world just a little bit better. And the call to action has been my challenge, and that's why I lend my voice to more than one cause. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Hello. I'm David Keel, and I've been a member here for about 20 years. Oh, by the way, I loved your music. I love your song choice, your voice. It was wonderful. My spirituality, which I associate with justice, consists of a sense of connection to others and a sense of connection to something larger than myself. This larger connection somehow provides a meaningful directionality to my life, which I don't really understand. What I do understand is my job is to open up to a larger connection and to trust in it. The main reason I attend UUCJ is for the spiritual studies class. UUCJ is probably the only spiritual studies class where mystics, agnostics, confirmed atheists in the room discussing spirituality. Whether you're a mystic, atheist, pagan, agnostic, life is all about connecting with others and the environment. Once, one of our more renowned atheists, Sharon Scholl, who ironically is one of the most spiritual people I know, I think she is been to spiritual studies class longer than I have, which is amazing. So, if anybody's interested, we have the spiritual studies class that starts at 9:30 and goes through 10:45 on Sundays. And we talk about these topics all the time. That's what we talk about and how that relates to your spiritual. How can you be a spiritual person or a connected person and be just and do justice. So, but I was asked here to talk about L'Arche, which some of you are familiar with. L'Arche, L''ARCHE, which means the ark, like Noah's ark, in French. I used to sponsor a dance here once a year in October, where the L'Arche there's like 20 of them, core members who are disabled, and it's a home for the disabled. They used to come here, and we would, so a lot of you have participated in that dance. But it's a community that's only about a half a mile from here. I have no idea why I decided that L'Arche would be a big part of my life. It is part of my spiritual connection that I trust in. 15 years ago, I was invited to a once-a-month community night, which is part of their program. After that, I spent more time at L'Arche, and before COVID, UUCJ used to do the dance with a live DJ in the social hall. For 10 years, I was at L'Arche almost every day. I moved to be near them 13 years ago. I bought a house on the Arlington River, which is only about 2 miles from here, with a pool, a dock, within walking distance, so the core members, who are the disabled, and the assistants for them to use whenever they wanted, and they are still using it today. So that's wonderful. There are some things that I did for them up until COVID. Things have changed somewhat since then. I went to morning prayer 4 days a week. I volunteered for many of the events, including working with Rainbow Workhouse, Workshop, which is a daytime activity center for most of the core members. I went to retreats. Once a month, I attended community night where I played guitar and helped chaperone dances at various churches, participated with the assistants in assistant training, and also celebrated just about every holiday that they had. Sharon Scholl and I spent, for about 6 years, provided evening meals once a week for the different houses. It's where the assistants live in, and so that they can have a relationship with the disabled, more than just taking them home So it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week deal for the assistants. I used to get people to visit L'Arche after Sundays because it was so close. Worked with the assistants in their spiritual guidance program. Sometimes my wife and I would have them over to our house, and I would go to their houses for supper. Since COVID, I don't do as much with them. They don't have as many people now, and they haven't gotten into the groove on some of the stuff like the dances. Besides supporting them financially, I continue to be connected. This month I was at L'Arche for 2 functions, and where the core members and the assistants attended. At these events, I have been taking my 4-year-old daughter, who loves going there. After the service, granddaughter, excuse me. My wife would have been surprised about that one. After the service, if you want to ask me questions, I'll be glad to talk to you. One of the things I feel, whether social justice, political justice, there's a quote from Mother Teresa, "What matters is not what you do, but the love you put into the doing." Do I have any more time? All right, I'll do something really quickly. This is what L'Arche tells if you want to join their community or be volunteer. This is some of the things that they say. Mutual dependence. L'Arche fosters a relationship model with individuals with intellectual disabilities that share life together. Celebrating gifts, building relationships, shifting from independence, because this is very dependent. They're depending on you, and you are depending on them, even though they're disabled. And then there's a global connection, because there's over 150 L'Arche organizations throughout the world. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vince Ober. For those who don't know me, for those who do and have anything that I've said or done that offended you, I apologize publicly. Jeff Vanderberg asked me to talk about medical care in the community, and I wanted to tell you first my background. I'm a family physician. I practiced for 50 years. Can you believe it? I was in the Navy and trained in the Navy. The Navy sent me to medical school under scholarship, so I took welfare to go to medical school, and then I served for 23 years in the Navy, got out, worked rather for 22 years at University of Florida, and now work part-time, volunteer at several clinics that serve the underserved and underserved, and I still get a chance to do that. So I just want to give that as my background. So Jeff asked me to give sort of an overview of care for the underserved, since I've done that. And he asked me to talk about some of the perspectives of patients, some of the perspectives of doctors, and asked me to talk about insurance systems. And so I'm going to be hopefully brief. Tried to cut out, Susan, my wife, helped me to cut out all the stuff that would be boring. She said no one is interested in statistics, so I've cut all those out. So first I want to talk about issues in health care for the underserved. I want to talk about some issues of providers and patients and insurance systems. So the underserved, that includes a lot. It's not just the people who are uninsured, but it includes people that lack access to clinics or hospitals. So there are some areas in Jacksonville that there are very few clinics. People can't get to them easily for a variety of reasons. And then there's a whole bunch of social issues that prevent one from getting the care they need, whether it's racism, ageism, sexism, all the isms. Maybe it's transportation. Maybe it's they don't speak the language. Maybe, anyway, there are a whole bunch of social issues that prevent people from getting the care they need, and I include those in the underserved. So from the patient's perspective, I'm just going to talk about 3 things: access, cost, and quality. So first, access to care. Some people do not have access to care, or they ask, how can I get care? So, what clinic will see me? How can I get there? Will they give me, will they look at me and say, gosh, you're not the kind of person that we want to take care of. Will I feel comfortable there? So access to care is one big issue. Next is the cost. How will I pay for it? A lot of places you can go to an emergency room and they will take care of you. They will bill you, but they will take care of you. Other places, they won't let you in the door unless you're willing to pay, or unless you have insurance. And that's a lot of places. So the cost is very important. Also, the cost of medical care is the number one cause of debt. Medical care debt is the number one cause for bankruptcies in the United States. So that's important to remember, and I guess most people probably know that. And then the last part that people are really concerned about is the quality of care. Do the people that I'm seeing really know what they're talking about? Are they going to, do they really know? And a lot of times you do know, because you know the clinic, you know the people, but a lot of times you don't. And next, do they care? Does the provider really care about me? Do they really want to take care of me? And there's a lot of ways that people have talked about that, but one that I like the most is from William Osler, who was sort of the father of internal medicine, for one of the first textbooks back in the 1800s, which was, it's much more important to know what kind of patient has the disease than what kind of disease the patient has. So another one is, people don't know they don't care what you know until you know that you care. So, and others too. And then from the physician perspective, most physicians I know are empathetic. They want to take care of people. That's the reason they got into it. But they share the same prejudices as anybody else in the country. So they come from different backgrounds, and they do. That influences the care they give. That's important. Most physicians also now are employed by they're employed by for-profit organizations, and for-profit organizations want to take care of people that have the best insurance, that pay the most, all right? And I'll talk about that in a minute. But even non-profit organizations stress care for people that have the best insurance. And the example that I remember the most, I worked for University of Florida, and I was in the hospital taking care of patients. So Medicaid at that time would pay for this many days. So if you had a Medicaid patient, on day that the insurance coverage ran out, you would have somebody come and review your chart and talk to you and say, so is this patient well enough to go home today? And I thought that was pretty crass, but that was the way they ran it. And that happens in other places too. So I don't want to pick on them. So most organizations want to care for well-insured patients, and they discourage you taking care of uninsured or underinsured patients. So insurance, what about it? Private insurance in Jacksonville, these are statistics that add up to more than 100, so you have to give me some slack here. Private insurance, about 45% in Jacksonville have private insurance, and that would include insurance that people have because of their job. It would include insurance they pay for on their own. Medicaid takes care of about a fifth, about 20% of the people in Duval County. ACA, Affordable Care Act, and the different levels of that, but about 16%. Medicare, those over 65, about 12% in Duval County. You have to know that Duval County, or Northeast Florida, has a much younger average age than the rest of Florida. If you went out of the Panhandle, the average age in here is in the 30s. The average age in the Panhandle is in the 50s. So, but there are fewer Medicare patients in Florida, and then the uninsured is about 14%. So Medicaid, if you don't know, takes care of low-income patients. You have to qualify, and if you don't, you get kicked out. Medicare is over 65, and then the ACA, anybody can get that. How about the one big, beautiful bill? Is that going to affect Medicare coverage? Well, one of the biggest changes are in Medicaid. It's going to reduce coverage for Medicaid, and it's going to put in more checks, more requirements, work requirements, et cetera. Some of the concerns about that, and so who's going to pick up the slack for that. States are going to have to pick up the financial responsibility for the funds that are no longer provided by the federal government. Florida is one of 10 states that did not expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. In 24-25, the budget for 24-25 did not include budget cuts for Medicaid. Medicare expansion is supposedly supported by 67% of people in Florida. And there will be a ballot initiative planned for 2026, which I hope you all support. So some of the things that concerns about this, more uninsured, less access for children because of Medicaid cuts, and also SNAP, which is food stamps, has been cut under this new law. And so children will suffer because of that. And then closure of small and rural hospitals. You don't think of this, but many hospitals, their margins are are very thin, and Medicaid is sort of part of that, their financing, part of their business plan. And without Medicaid, many hospitals will probably close, and many have closed already because of financial problems. So what can we do to help? First, I think know the issues. How do I know the issues? Because that's what I do, and I'm interested. But all of us can pay attention to what's going on with medical care. Second, what can we do to make systems better? Well, we can talk about how other systems in the world are better. Medical care in the United States costs 50% more than other industrialized countries. And the average age, or excuse me, average length, life expectancy for people in those other countries, those other industrialized countries, is about 4 years more than in the United States. So we pay the most, and we get less than we deserve for our money. So knowing about that is important. So what is different about these other countries? They have universal health care, which we don't. Will we ever get it here? It's a big push. I don't know whether we will. These other countries have preventive care. They focus more on that. And they also focus on more efficient administrative cost or spending. They're able to do things better. Here, there are lots of hoops we have to jump through to get things done. Medicare is a very cost-efficient medical care system compared to other insurance companies. So we could do better all around. We can write to your representatives, and you can volunteer at these other clinics. You don't have to be a physician to volunteer at some of these clinics that I volunteer, and I'm happy to give you information about them if you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince. My topic is the rights of LGBTQI persons. As some of you may know, my daughter Bree falls in that category. She is gay. I asked her if she would come up and share her thoughts on what it's like to be gay in the United States today. Bree?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak today. I know this is a place where being yourself is celebrated. Being gay in today's America is a mix of emotions, some heavy, some beautiful, all real. I came out when I was in 5th grade. I was only 11. I couldn't say all I was feeling, but I knew who I was, even back then. And I also knew it wasn't a phase. People sometimes say that being gay is just a phase. But I've lived in this truth long enough to know this isn't something I'm trying. This is who I am. Still, that doesn't mean it's always been easy. I've always feared being judged, especially at school. Even today, there's this little voice in the back of my head wondering if they really knew me, would they like me, treat me different, laugh in my face, or behind my back? It's exhausting, always wondering if you are safe to be yourself. Sometimes it feels like being gay means constantly walking around with your guard up. But despite all of that, being gay has taught me more about love and strength than anything else ever could. It's taught me how to fight for my joy, to find beauty and truth, and to find people who love me for exactly who I am. And it's also taught me that the fear, while real, it doesn't get to win. I know that every time I speak up and live openly, I take a little bit of that fear away from someone else who might not be ready yet. So I do that. Speak up and live openly. So to anyone who feels like they're hiding or unsure or scared, I've been there. But I promise you, you are not alone. Who you are is not detestable and not a phase. It's a gift. I'm thankful that with people like all of you, I feel safe enough to say that out loud. Thank you.
That took a lot of courage for her. So before I talk about speaking up for LGBTQ persons, I'm going to give a little bit of relevant history in my own journey around this subject. So years ago, when I was a conservative Lutheran, I read Leviticus 18 and Romans 1, and I said, being gay is a sin. It's wrong, period. However, whenever I was getting ready to go to seminary, I went to UNF, and at UNF I majored in psychology, and I learned about something called twin studies. Anyone familiar with what twin studies are? So what they are is when two twins are taken at birth and separated and live in different households, especially identical twins, that is a gold mine for science, because science can look at those two twins and look how things correlate between them, even though they were raised in different households. And what they found is that if one identical twin identified as gay, the other twin that was raised in a whole different household was 10 to 13 times more likely to identify as gay than the general population. So I heard that and I said, but Leviticus 18 and Romans 1. I have a cousin that's gay. His name is Gary. My mom was very old-fashioned and she questioned it as well. And she went and visited my aunt one time, and she sat down and had a conversation with my cousin Gary. And he told her, he said, Aunt Fran, if there's anything I could have in this world, it would be that I wish that I could be straight. To have a family, to have a wife, to be looked at differently by the community. If I could have that, that's what I wish I could have. But I can't, because that's not who I am. And my mom walked away from that conversation with a whole different perspective. And she told me about it. And that made me doubt a little bit more. So finally I said, you know what, I'm going to do something myself. So I got on the computer, it wasn't Google back then, it was Yahoo. So I got on the computer and I did a search. What percentage of people in Australia identify as gay? 4%. What percentage of people in Norway, whole different continent, whole different culture, identify as gay? 4.2%. What percentage of people in Iran identify as gay? A place where if you come out as gay, it's a death sentence. 3.1%. Japan, 9.7%. Egypt, 10%. South Africa, 3%. Chile, Brazil, and by the way, South America is heavily, heavily Roman Catholic, where it's definitely frowned upon, 2% each. Canada, 4%. And I finally said, okay, it's a choice. It's obviously a choice. It's not something that's wrong. So, what I have found in my own experience, the best chance we have to change someone's heart when it comes to accepting LGBTQI persons is to share facts like that. To share the irrefutable proof that it truly is not a choice. It's who they are. And that's what I would encourage you to do whenever you're dealing with people that are anti-gay, is just share the facts lovingly and nicely. Bree, and anyone else, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, questioning, intersex, there is nothing wrong with you. You are one of 241,860,000 people that identify as gay in this world. You are one of 725,580,000 people that fall in that LGBTQI spectrum. It's not a choice. To quote Lady Gaga, just put your paws up, because you were born this way, baby. Can I get an amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you. Today's responsive reading is made up of quotes about social justice action from various persons. I will read the plain font. We will read together the italics font. Each author is listed, but we will not read their name. Freedom and justice cannot be parceled out in pieces to suit political convenience. I don't believe you can stand for freedom for one group of people and deny it to others. We are all implicated when we allow other people to be mistreated. In absence I am not interested in picking up crumbs of compassion thrown from the table of someone who considers himself my master. I want the full menu of rights. When we identify where our privilege intersects with somebody else's oppression, we'll find our opportunities to make real change. We have a right to protest for what is right. That's all we can do. There are people hurting. There are people suffering, so we have an obligation, a mandate to do something. There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. Our freedoms are vanishing. If you do not get active to take a stand now against all that is wrong while we still can, then maybe one of your children may elect to do so in the future, when it will be far more riskier and much, much harder.